Right.
So I don't claim specific expertise. And I have general knowledge, but not specific expertise. And so anytime we're in that situation, we bring in someone who's got the expertise. So
an expert.
So joining us by video call today is our guest, a plant geneticist, Pamela Ronald. Pamela, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So you study rice genetics at UC Davis, is that correct?
Don't care.
I do.
Now, I thought at UC Davis they just make wine. There's a huge wine school there at UC Davis.
When you're doing a lot of research, you need to drink a little bit of wine now and then. So,
So that's the relationship among the schools of study. Yes.
I like the way you guys roll.
I like the way you guys roll. What kind of other drugs do you do?
And you're a co-author of a book, Tomorrow's Table, Organic Farming, Genetics, and the Future of Food.
that's right. It's a book I wrote with my husband, who's an organic farmer.
Wow, it's like an atheist and a Christian getting married and writing a book about it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh wow! So you're a plant geneticist. He's an organic. You're like the Romeo and Juliet of biology. It's pretty cool.
Bro, can't talk anymore, bro.
We're still alive, though.
Good. That's an important
that's
difference.
An important difference. Right. You guys had a happy ending. I see.
Someday, we're going to start talking about GMOs.
So why don't we just start with basics here and just tell us what is a GMO and how do you create them?
Well, as you said, it's abbreviation.
Boom, did you see that? They put her credentials right as she's answering what a GMO is. So basically that does at least a couple of things. One, it's credentialing her as she's answering it, but it's credentialing her, it pops up, you have to read it while she's answering. You can't do both really at the same time that well. It's kind of disorienting. And you might say, well, it was just accidental that it was disorienting, but why did they choose to put it up now? They could have put it up when she first popped up. That's what they should have done. That's what you're supposed to do. The first time you see someone, here's who they are, here's their credentials.
For genetically modified organisms. And, you know, the term isn't really so useful for advancing discussions about sustainable agriculture.
Sustainable agriculture? We're just trying to understand what a GMO is.
And that's because the term seems to me means something different to everyone.
So I have a little pet peeve, and it's the use of terms like everyone, everything, everywhere. So you're saying there's 6-7 billion different interpretations of what a GMO is? Of course not. People maybe don't understand the definition. Some people misunderstand it. Everybody that doesn't have their own unique interpretation of it.
And the Food and Drug Administration has stated that it's scientifically meaningless. And that's because everything we eat, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, has been genetically altered in some manner.
Well, the FDA says it's scientifically meaningless. Well, that is meaningless to me. That means fucking nothing. Why don't you say things that mean things? I thought you were going to define this thing. Okay, what the fuck are you doing?
And so, for an example, some foods have been developed through a process of chemical or irradiation mutagenesis, which introduce random changes in the genome.
Whoa, okay, slow down, big words. Mutagenesis means change. Literally means a mutation over time through generations. So she's referring to chemical or irradiation, right? So why do you want to mess with that? You know, because it benefits humans a little bit better?
Some are developed through conventional breeding or hybridization. And genetic engineering is a technique where you can take a gene from any species and put it into a plant. So you could take a gene from a virus, for example, and put it into a plant.
Viruses? Really? Viruses is the example that you're gonna give? That is a terrible example. Viruses can barely be classified as a species. We've created almost an entirely new kingdom just for viruses to call them a species. What are you talking about? Viruses aren't a good thing either. Viruses have killed countless numbers of people throughout history. Billions and billions and billions of people have died because of viruses. Why is that the first thing out of your mouth when when you finally describe what a GMO is? No one's going to the store wanting to buy some viruses. What are you talking about?
So what you're saying is something I've known for a while, but
Then why do we have an expert on the show? If you know everything, Neil Degrasse Tyson.
it's good to hear it just sort of out of the horse's mouth here that we've been modifying organisms ever since the dawn of agriculture. Right? There are no herds of wild milk cows wandering the countryside.
Bro, I'm losing my temper here, man. India? You ever heard of fucking India?
We invented a cow for our purposes, to get meat and to get milk.
Neil, just, okay, take a break, breathe. Would one say that we invented dogs? No.
And we cultivate, we use the word cultivate, but it's really you're genetically changing corn.
So what you're saying is that cultivation is the same as genetic modification. There's no difference from putting a virus genetically into your food and just growing crops 10,000 years ago. Same thing, same thing.
From whatever cavemen ate to these big old sticks of corn that we now munch on.
They're not called cavemen, bro. What are you talking about?
So this is true for essentially every food in the grocery store.
Yeah, that's correct. And genetic engineering and another approach, genome editing, these are more modern tools, but it's been about 10,000 years of history. And
Stop. I don't want a history lesson. What the fuck is genome editing? You've just thrown something completely different into the equation. And you want to know in the beginning why everybody has their own different view of what a GMO is, because you haven't really fucking defined that yet.
there's been changes along the way. Mendel discovered the genetic basis of inheritance.
Oh, you're just going to leave that one to us, huh? Mendel and the genetic basis of inheritance. We've got to look that up on our own. But we got Professor Astrophysicist over here giving us a breakdown of the difference between an acronym and an abbreviation.
Farmers started mixing two species together through grafting. There's mutagenesis, hybridization. So there's many different types of techniques, and genetic engineering has been around for 40 years and is one of the newer techniques.
So,
We're done with the history lesson?
so they're distinguishing genetic engineering, which happens in a laboratory, from the genetic changes that were brought about through crossbreeding and the history of this exercise going back to the dawn of agriculture.
Thanks for summing up the first 5 minutes in 5 seconds. Let's move on.
Well, that's partly true, but a lot of crops that organic farmers and other farmers grow have been developed in the laboratory. So it's not necessarily a laboratory step. There's not really a scientific reason for excluding genetically engineered crops from organic agriculture, but there's a historical reason.
Can we define organic agriculture maybe? Because it seems like there are different views of what organic agriculture is.
Why do we need GMOs at all? I mean, I know your answer, but I just want to just hear it.
Why do we need Pamela at all if you know everything, Neil Degrasse Tyson?
What is the
So
need
it's not
for
that
it?
we need so-called GMOs.
Oh God, she did air quotes. I don't know what a GMO is. What is the so-called GMO?
But we need to advance sustainable agriculture. And there are many important tools that we need. And as I mentioned before, we need ecologically based farming practices, but
I don't recall her saying that.
we also need seed. That seed could be developed with many approaches, but for particular, there's some problems that have no real solution except genetic engineering. We
Continue.
know some insecticides are very dangerous.
So the problem that we have no real solution for is that we're using dangerous insecticides.
So there's the World Health Organization reports that 300,000 people die every year from overuse or misuse of insecticides.
Stats.
Mostly in less developed countries.
Poor people.
They don't have safety measures that they can take. But
FDA.
what we do know is that every major scientific organization in the world, including the National Academy of Sciences, the European Food Safety Authority.
Europe, really? Like, first you went with viruses, and now you're going with Europe? Wow, okay. Just Google Europe GMOs. Just do that for me, just please.
And many other organizations have concluded that the process of genetic engineering is no more risky than conventional breeding.
Okay, I can't keep doing this. The process, who's talking about the process? We're talking about the effects they have when we eat them. It's so great to know that the scientists in the laboratories aren't at risk producing these GMOs.
And in fact, genetic engineering has been used for 40 years. It's been used in cheeses, in medicine, and in crops.
Lady, I really hope this isn't scripted. Cheeses, medicines, crops. Like, the shit that comes out the top of your head is fucking goofy. Like, I kind of do want to sit down with you for about 45 minutes to an hour and just chat and see what's on your mind.
And there hasn't been a single case of harm to human health or the environment.
Someone needs to teach Pamela how to use Google.